Well, it looks like the Hytale team are ramping things up before the release with another blog post. Again, I'm not complaining though. So, let's see what this one is about. A look at Hytale's lore and philosophy. Hi everyone, I'm Joe, holder of the keys to the Hytale's lore vault, and I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about our approach to narrative and lore, as well as to try to set or reset some expectations around it. Before we get stuck in it, there's one thing I want to get out of the way to avoid disappointment. This blog post will not contain any new specifics about the lore or narrative itself. There'll be no grand secrets or surprises divulged here. That part I'll leave to the game itself. I'm actually really happy that they're not going to reveal stuff in this blog post and they're just gonna leave it for us to find it in game. And now let's talk about the concept art. When we announced the game 7 years ago, we released an unusually high amount of concept art for a game still in development. We did so with clear disclaimers that this was all work in progress and that it wasn't a promise the contents would make it into a game. A disclaimer we still feature prominently on our media page. Much of that concept art included ideas and inspirations that were already outdated by the time they were released. Some of those ideas were only that, inspirations that weren't necessarily intended to become actual canon within the lore. Over the years that followed, more and more of that concept art became gradually less accurate, to the point where entire sheets were dropped, and their content were either removed or no longer planned for implementation. Such is the inevitable nature of concept art. They also shared this concept art, the club's Hytale, with a cellar, living room, entries. It's pretty cute. And now, let's talk about revisiting Hytale's lore. Since the reacquisition, many of these changes have been rolled back or reincorporated in different ways. Hytale evolved and changed dramatically over the years as the vision shifted, lore being no exception. The narrative went through multiple drafts, many of which weren't entirely compatible with each other. Entire factions were dropped or drastically changed. We have made a conscious decision to return to an earlier draft, one that's far more compatible with the engine we're shipping and the vision we have for the game as a whole. As a result, many aspects of the lore, most of which were never publicly revealed, have changed. Some of these changes we'll keep in reserve, with the potential to return to them later. But for now, they're not a part of our canon, and there's the possibility that they may never be. At the same time, we're working to reconcile the new with the old where we can and where it makes sense to do so. For example, when the revised characters were first shown, the change was divisive. Today, we like both the old and the new designs. But with the timeline we're shipping on, and the fact that the new designs aren't usable in-game, we can't exactly throw out the old ones anymore, nor do we want to. From these constraints and necessities comes a means of bringing both into the lore and making them work. No spoilers on how though, you'll learn about that eventually. This draft also retains many of the major aspects of the lore the community has come to love over the years. Characters such as Gaia and Varen are still very much part of our canon, and Tessa and Kyros are coming back as well. We also intend to revisit the concept of Alterverses, as we value the opportunities it offers to plan for long-term content and to connect it to the overarching narratives we eventually want to tell. And as you can see, this is the concept art for Tessa and Kyros. Our philosophy. Lore should not be a strict set of rules that everyone on the team is required to follow while designing content. It should be an inspiration that fuels creativity and allows experimentation, but also a set of guardrails to ensure we don't get too far off track and that everything remains consistent. We do have a set of canon foundations that are very unlikely to change again, but everything above them is kept flexible enough to change if needed. Much of our lore, especially the early theses present in exploration mode, will be uncovered by exploring the world and uncovering hints left in the form of structures and the items or objects found therein. This method of storytelling is often referred to as archaeology, and gives us the flexibility to tell stories from different perspectives, many of which may not share the same understandings of Orbis and its nature. For example, while Gaia is the avatar of Orbis, not all factions may be aware of this fact. And now let's talk about exploration mode. With the highly accelerated timeline to release an early access version of Hytale, it shouldn't come as a surprise that there has been no time to put in a grand sweeping narrative. There are no system in place to support such an endeavor, and there has never been a version of the game that had anything close to a narrative implemented. Even the details of the story itself have never truly been finalized. As a result, expect lore in exploration mode to be uncovered almost exclusively through archaeology and discovery, and to be relatively light at first. There are certainly secrets to be found throughout the world, and nothing exists without intent. We'll also continue to introduce lore as we update other aspects of the game. Though I've said there will be no grand narrative, there is a narrative of sorts present. It's one intended for players to piece together as they play through the exploration mode. One that ties into our transition from Worldgen V1 to V2. Perhaps the term Cursebreaker will ring some sort of bell? And finally, change is never just for the sake of change. As a closing note, I like to talk a little bit about change, a recurring theme throughout this post. Hytale's lore has always been in a state of flux. In the past, it changed and changed again. Sometimes so often that members within the team had different understandings of what was true and not. Since reacquiring the game, we've made changes too, something I already mentioned earlier in the post. Not every change will be popular with everyone, but sometimes those changes are necessary for a variety of reasons. Even if it might be hard for some of you, we don't and won't make changes to the lore just for the sake of it. Every change we make is intentional and thoroughly thought out. Only when you, the players, step into the echoes of Orbis for the first time can we finally and truly say that Hytale's lore has crystallized into canon. And there you have it. This is the end of the blog post and the video. If you have any suggestions or feedback, please leave them down below in the comments. Have a great day.